What's up everybody and welcome back to another Dota 2 commentary, and this is going to be a match between 4FC from Sweden and Fnatic from, well, I guess all over Europe, as this is a match from StarLadder. I'm not too sure of the team's rankings. All I know is that Rattlesnake International is doing very well and Virtus Pro is not doing very well, so we'll have to see how that goes. Keep in mind Virtus Pro haven't really been practicing since their schedules are just really out of date, and they are technically a new team despite having a lot of veterans. And Rattlesnake International, their hard work and practices have been paying off. You know, I think Alliance and Navi are sort of in the middle of the pack at the moment, but I'm not too sure how Fnatic as well as 4FC are doing, as looks like 4FC are playing with the stand-in. I don't really remember Blom last time I casted 4FC, which has gotta be like 6 months ago, and Juicy I guess is standing in, but meanwhile Fnatic are playing with their full roster aside from, well, Fly, No Tail, Trixie, Hani, Arrow. So it looks like they have somebody else playing the hard carry today. So 4FC with some interesting bans, ban out Abaddon, who is very standard these days, ban out Wisp, and then they ban out Spirit Breaker. So maybe Fnatic have been playing with Spirit Breaker a lot recently. I couldn't tell you because, again, I don't really watch professional Dota anymore. I'm far too busy these days, but now I'm trying to get back in the swing of things. Meanwhile, Fnatic, their bans look a lot more standard, although Lone Druid with the first two bans against 4FC, well, you don't usually see Lone Druid being picked up in the first two picks unless you're Alliance, so I'm not too sure what to think of the Lone Druid first two picks. Maybe they just really don't like playing against Lone Druid with this particular subset of heroes, but they managed to snag themselves Timbersaw as well as Troll Warlord. Meanwhile, 4FC managed to get their hands on Nagasarn as well as Chen, so they have the typical Alliance dual support combination, which is so powerful in a defense challenge since Naga can pull and get levels, Chen can farm in the jungle. You don't necessarily need to gank too well, but if you do have to go gank, then there are very few ganking supports who can rival Nagasarn and Chen, especially if they can manage to get a smoke to seat. So Fnatic's mid lane will have to be careful, or we'll have to be given some Centaurs to cover him if the 4FC support squads make their way towards middle lane. But yeah, it's just an interesting thing. I don't know if you guys agree with me, but the top three European teams, of course, I mean Alliance, Navi, and Fnatic at TI3, keep in mind they got 1st, 2nd, and 7th respectively. None of them switched up their rosters. You know, every single other team switched up their roster to a tremendous extent. So I don't know what really to say about that. Usually European teams switch up their rosters quite a bit, but it's nice to see that we're seeing some stability from the very top teams in the European region. And I think the only concern was whether Fly would have to leave since he's been very busy doing his other activities, but it seems like he's standing just fine as captain. So I don't know, I think, now this might seem a little bit flamey, and it's not intended to be flame, this is all just my personal opinion, but I think the Asian team's biggest weakness is their adversity to change, and they don't really feel comfortable adapting to new things. But Fnatic, with their team compositions, they always feel, or Fnatic and the top teams in Europe always feel like they can manage to get a grasp on new changes and new paces in the meta, so I think that's why the top three European teams did not make any roster changes. And of course, I mean, Fnatic have been around forever with this current lineup, and after getting 1st and 2nd place, there isn't really too much reason why Navi or Alliance would change their rosters at all. So Fnatic ban out the OD, so 4FC will secure themselves a Weaver. Meanwhile, Fnatic managed to get themselves Lifestealer. An interesting decision for 4FC to actually let Lifestealer go through so far in, but maybe they have some plans to do with Lifestealer. Of course, they have probably the best Lifestealer counter in the form of Nagasarn, because keep in mind, you can pop Song of the Siren and while Lifestealer is enraged, and that means unless the heroes on Fnatic have a BKB or some form of magical immunity, then they'll all fall asleep. Aside from the Lifestealer, then they can net the Lifestealer and then just go to work on him, hopefully before the rage duration times out. And yeah, that's why Nagasarn is probably the best hero to counter Lifestealer in the game, and that's probably why 4FC were not too threatened. Another great hero to deal with Lifestealer is, of course, Weaver, since he is ridiculously difficult to lock down. The only problem with Weaver in this game is that one bash combined with Timbersaw's immense amount of magical damage will spell the end of Weaver for the very early portion of this game, at least for the first 15 minutes. And of course, Frostbite makes it even easier to hold Weaver in place.
5 seconds remaining.
So right now, Fnatic, they have all three of their cores. They have Troll Warlord, who could potentially go mid, they have Timbersaw, who could potentially go mid, and they have the makings of an aggressive tri-lane. Now, This lineup could be a defensive challenge as well, but since they have 3 heroes that need a lot of levels, we'll most likely see an aggressive challenge unless they decide to just abandon Timbersaw to his fate, and if that's the case, then he won't be receiving too many levels at all. So look for 4FC to ban heroes like VII or some other heroes similar to that, maybe something like a Shadow Demon who can get in range and set up that disruption so that Lifesteal and Crystalman can go to work on whatever hero is being targeted against the child. With 4FC, I think they responded very nicely, even though it might not have been a conscious effort. They picked up Nagasaran, who is a very strong defensive support, especially against Lifestealer with the net. And of course, Weaver, one of the most survivable carries. And it's very difficult for Crystalman and another support to gank Shen since they are so slow, and Crystalman is relatively squishy, all things considered, especially if Weaver is in the defensive island, where he can just Shikuchi in and help out the Chen if he does get ganked in the jungle. So personally, I think Fnatic might have revealed their hand a little bit too soon. 4FC picked themselves up a puck, and now I've got to assume this is going to be a mid-solo puck, and I've got to assume Fnatic will put a mid-solo Timbersaw to go up against him. Keep in mind, Fnatic, even they could potentially put Troll Warlord in the aggressive challenge. He is a very strong tri versus tri-lane carry, and with Crystalman, one of the best tri versus tri-lane supports, then that might be an option, as 4FC banning out the Enchantress to protect the Chen, meanwhile Fnatic getting rid of the Clockwork just to make sure Lifestealer doesn't have too many problems in team fights. And they know if they do go on the offensive, then they can't really contest the Clockwork, because the biggest thing you should do about Clockwork is just challenge him with the defense challenge, since Clockwork cannot go into the jungle to get his own levels and will just have a miserable time catching up. But since Fnatic have shown their hands with an aggressive challenge, they ban out the Clockwork, so Clockwork won't get too many levels and won't have that enormous early game impact. But Fnatic pick up the Centaur Warrunner. Now, this is an interesting choice, and this is definitely going to be an aggressive challenge by the side of Fnatic.
10 seconds remaining.
So I personally think Centaur is vastly underrated, but it's difficult what his place is. He's not a strong mid since he doesn't have the best mana pool. I mean, he has a decent amount of tank ability with his ridiculous strength growth of 3.8, as shifting around the chair makes very funny noises. And he really just doesn't get going until it's level 6, where he can get access into the Stampede ability. But until then, he has a solid initiation, has a lot of burst damage, and can pretty much kill anybody, and that includes the Weaver if he is in the defense round. One Frostbite into a Stomp into a Double Edge will spell the end of this pesky little bug. And if the mid-game should happen, Centaur Warrunner, I think, is probably one of the best mid-game heroes in the game, since he's ridiculously tanky, doesn't need too many items, and of course has a global move speed buff that can just make his team ridiculously difficult to head down. But the problem with Centaur Warrunner, which is why we don't see him too often, is that he needs a lot of levels, and he can't really harass people out of lane by himself, and he of course is not the best primary carrier, as 4FC are going to pick up Medusa, who was just introduced to the patch yesterday. So this is going to be an interesting game to say the least, and this will be an offlane Weaver, I guess, against a Dusa, or an offlane Weaver with Dusa in the safe lane. Now I think it would probably be more prudent to put Weaver in the safe lane and put a more secure offlaner, but May at 4FC were fearing if it came down to the late game, then Weaver might be the only sole source of DPS, and if that's the case, then they want to have some sort of backup, which is going to be the Medusa in this case. And of course, Medusa against Lifestealer does do pretty well as Troll, assuming of course Medusa doesn't get bashed. So the question is, how effective can Medusa be? As I'll talk a little bit more about Medusa right after the players pick up their heroes. But yeah, look for Fnatic to go with an aggressive challenge, and it's actually No-Tail playing the Lifestealer. Interesting. I would have thought that Fire would be playing the main carry, since he's standing in for Era, who of course is the main carry player for Fnatic. But it looks like Fire is playing the Timbersaw, and that might mean he's going to the offlane with No-Tail playing a farmer. No-Tail picks up a Slippers of Agility, so he's going to get a Poor Man Shield, and he's anticipating Weaver or Dusa to go up against him, so that's why he's going to go for that very fast Poor Man Shield. Very unorthodox item build, but very typical for Fnatic. Meanwhile, looks like Hani was pulled a lot of regeneration. Now, this might come back to bite Fnatic in the ass, but it looks like they aren't even going to go on the offensive. They're instead just going to put Timbersaw in the offlane, perhaps recognizing that there is a Chen in the jungle, and that a Naga as well as a Medusa likely won't be able to challenge him too hard in the dual lane versus solo lane action. But anyways, Medusa, before her recent change to her ultimate, was widely considered to be the worst hero in the game because she took way too long to build up. And, I mean, if it came down to late game carry, when you have a carry that doesn't really become effective until after the 30-35 minute mark, why not just pick up a carry who hits harder, can win the game earlier for you, whether it be a Lifestealer or a Weaver who can survive a bit better, since Medusa is ridiculously immobile despite being reasonably tanky, can do more damage, or can just overall contribute more to a team fight. And I think Medusa's main weakness is not that she tends to build up too long, she's just way too immobile to really contribute to anything until the 30 to 35 minute mark, where she can just group up or even farm by herself on the top lane. But introducing the players and teams on the side of Fnatic, we're going to have Fly playing the Crystal Main, No-Tail is playing the Lifestealer, Trixie is playing the Warrunner, Hani is playing the Troll Warlord, and Fire is playing the Timber Saw. Me on the side of 4FC, we're going to have Strangby playing the Weaver, Blom is playing the Puck, Bombski is playing the Chen, Krilly is playing Medusa, and Juicy is playing, or Jessie, I guess. Jessie? I don't know. Some sort of Swedish pronunciation, I assume, is playing the Naga Siren. An interesting maneuver by 4FC. They're going to put Chen in the offensive jungle, but we're going to see a lot of damage being thrown on to Jessie so far. Has not skilled a single skill point, instead wants to preserve that skill point for as long as possible, but Chen in the offensive jungle, he knows that Crystal Main and Centaur are really just not too mobile supports, so they can't really challenge Chen too much, and that way the Weaver can get some semblance of farm. The only thing is if this creep camp can be contested, and if it is, yeah. The recent color change update to Dota 2 is making me a bit OCD-ish as well. But yeah, if this pull camp is ever contested, Roshan is yellow? Oh my god, Rosh is yellow. What the hell? I'm so confused. But yeah, it's going to be difficult for the supports to actually pull this creep because Chen can just come in with a creep of his own and just do a lot of damage. So a really strong aggressive Giant. The only problem is that they won't really be able to stop Lifestealer at all from farming. And he's going to have his permanent shield up in the next second. But this is also a very good scenario because Medusa, again, one of her biggest flaws is that she takes a long time to build up. But now she can at least do stuff in teamfight. Her ultimate now, of course, allows her to actually stun people in place if heroes are looking at her. And keep in mind, the ultimate lasts for 6 seconds, and if you're caught looking at her for 2 seconds, then you will get stunned and take an immense amount of extra physical damage. And heroes like Weaver, as well as even Naga, can definitely punish that to a certain extent. So with Medusa getting solo experience, not going to be challenged too much because supports will obviously not rotate through on the top lane since they are concerned about protecting Lifestealer. Then this Medusa will just have a lot of time to build up and get at least a lot of points into all of her abilities. Now Medusa's skill build is an interesting dilemma because she does want to get her farm capability going ASAP, which means getting a lot of points in split shot, but in the early game, split shot as well as mana shield don't really do anything, unless of course you're ancient stacking, which, I mean, then you can max split shot first, I suppose. But other than that, these two abilities really don't do anything for the first 6 or 7 levels, and that means she's going to get a lot of points in the stats. So I assume Curly will just go for this very standard pub build where you get snake stats until level 6 and then start worrying about your other abilities. Now, I'm not too sure what Curly will do about the item build. The old common way to build Medusa was to always rush Lincoln Sphere. Not really because you need the spell block, but just so you can have the extra bit of mana regeneration so that your mana shield can just make sure that you tank everything. But with a solo Medusa, I don't know if he necessarily needs that extra bit of tankability since he'll just be able to rely on the stats as well as her superior level advantage to just be able to tank things naturally even without the mana shield. And if that's the case, then she might forego going for that Lincoln Sphere rush and instead go for something like a Manta rush or even something like a Scotty rush, which I have seen quite a few times, even in competitive pubs. But meanwhile, just checking out the CS, looks like Troll is doing pretty well against Puck. I think Troll should have the advantage since the Whirling Axes do quite a bit in terms of forcing Puck away. And, I mean, Puck really can't kill the Troll, but Troll won't really be able to kill the Puck either unless he manages to get a couple of lucky bashes. But Troll is just using his extra base damage to really bully Puck in terms of last hits and denies, at least for this very early stage. And a mid-game troll with free farm is definitely nothing to underestimate.
Illusion.
You know, Fire seems like he's holding his own up on the top lane. Dusa, of course, since she did get a lot of points in his stats, means that she will be able to tank up a little bit more than previously expected. And of course, the pure damage just is very, very annoying for Medusa to deal with. But with her constantly spamming that Mystic Snake, that means Timbersaw won't really have too much mana to spam his pure damage abilities. And Timbersaw is actually going for an interesting build, instead getting max throwing death rather than getting a lot of points in that Timber Chain. But maybe thinks he'll get enough levels where he'll be able to max Timber Chain sooner rather than level later. You know, Bombski is just having grand old time in the jungle, farming up, has that smoke seed to potentially apply pressure, and the annoying thing about Troll Warlord in the middle lane is that he's not mobile, and he doesn't have a stun to help secure his safety from any sort of ganks. So if Chen does decide to gank Troll Warlord, could potentially be in lot of trouble, but don't look for that to happen until Puck has full HP, full mana, and has at least level 6. You know, Trixie has the boots, level 3 already, and he's going to go right into the jungle. And looks like Chen was driven away from the jungle successfully. Of course, Chen has been the defensive jungle for quite a bit since he recognized that Crystal Main and Centaur were starting to get those levels online, and that means Chen could potentially die since, again, Centaur as well as Crystal Main do a lot of damage. And Centaur, going for a bit of a jungling build, is allowing Xian to pick up a lot of extra experience being a sole support rather than a dual support. You know, Weaver seems like he's doing pretty well, 25-3, as there's going to be a bit of initiation onto Naga Siren. I don't know if they can necessarily kill the Naga, they're going to apply the Frostbite, but good control by Fnatic. They backed off right before the lifesteal got to tower range, but now Fly could potentially be in a lot of trouble. A couple more hits will spell the end of Fly, trying to desperately kill off the Swarm, but one more Shikuchi will spell the end of this annoying Crystal Maiden as Weaver trying to get the heck out of there. He doesn't have enough mana to Shikuchi away, but we'll be able to tangle out to safety. No-Tail just simply could not get the vision online and doesn't have boots to sufficiently chase away the Weaver, who now has the tread. So a good engagement by the Weaver took advantage of Centaur's lack of lane presence, I suppose, and went on the very squishy Crystal Main. I don't know why Fnatic decided to initiate on the Naga Siren. Naga Siren, of course, probably the tankiest support in the game at the moment because she has ridiculous armor and, of course, has a very naturally high base moon speed to allow her to escape from a lot of engagements, where most supports wouldn't be able to do that. So right now 4FC looking pretty sharp. I mean, it's pretty much a waiting game for 4FC. All they want to do is get levels and buy time for Dusa to farm up. And Dusa already has the phase boots online, has taken quite a bit of damage, and this is where a Ring of Health and Perseverance build would be very, very handy, since Dusa without Mana Shield is ridiculously squishy, and this is Timbersaw's time to shine since he has the Arcane boots online, as well as a point into that Arcane aura from the Crystal Maiden. You know, mid lane gank was failed as Hani was able to escape Troll Warlord. All he can do is survive on the extra bit of HP that the Berserker Rage gives him, and seems like that did pay off as 4FC did expend quite a number of resources. They rotated the Chen, they used the Smoker Sea, and they rotated the Naga Siren, but they weren't able to get the kill on Hani, and Hani is still on top of the CS charts. In fact, doubling out the Puck, so Puck really not having a good time whatsoever. So the only thing going in Fnatic's favor is the middle lane, since top lane is in favor of Medusa as long as she hasn't been getting killed, and bottom lane is in favor of 4FC because they managed to get the first blood, and Weaver has not been interrupted in terms of getting his experience online, even though No-Tail is having his way in terms of farming up. Now, another problem with Fnatic's lineup is that it's difficult for them to gank, since if they gank with Timbersaw, then they're just going to be allowing Medusa to just completely free farm up, and they can't really rotate the mid laner. It's I mean, what can Troll do to gank unless rely on a lucky bash and a little bit of slow percentage from the Whirling Axe's ranged form. So that might be a bit of an issue. And again, the best way to beat down Dusa is to capitalize on her lack of mobility in the early stages game, as Fire is going in very aggressively, has the Chakram, going to do a bit of pure damage and then just drive Dusa all the way back. As Fire is playing this matchup pretty well, but there's only so much you can do by yourself as a Timbersaw. Yo, Weaver was able to pick up a kill on Crystal Main. How the hell did that happen? Well, Fly was pulling. Dropped a Swarm. Goodbye, Crystal Main. We hardly knew you as the Centaur stun was there, but Weaver's just able to scuttle on either of the treads, allowing him to get a bit of extra mana to spam that Chiguchi pretty much whenever he wants, and also have access into the time lapse should he so desire. So right now this bottom lane is going abysmally for Fnatic, and that might put a lot of pressure on No Tail as he really needs to have an impact in this game. Otherwise, at this rate, there won't really be any ganking presence to gank that Medusa if Crystal Main is kept down. And this is why I think Centaur as a Trident support is really just not a strong option. I think Centaur's best option is a 1v1 offlane matchup, similar to Nature's Prophet, where you can run an aggressive Trident and then put somebody in a 1v1 matchup, because Centaur is very strong in mid-game, but he wants to get to that mid-game ASAP, and at this rate, it just simply won't happen, as Mule Fire just going to approach the enemy jungle. The only bright spot for Fnatic is, again, Troll Warlord CS, as well as No Tail's farm. But again, it's a ticking time bomb going up against Medusa, as Puck is going to take a little bit of damage, is going to use the haste rune to get on out of there, and should be a-okay. Now, Fly being kept down is very, very bad news for Fnatic, because Crystal Main this squishy against the likes of Weaver as well as Naga and Puck, they're just going to feast on her day in and day out at this rate, and there's really not too much Crystal Main can do because 4FC has a pretty mobile lineup aside from the Medusa and the Chen. And Crystal Main, of course, is probably the most immobile support in the game. But meanwhile, 4FC gonna smoke up, and that Observer Ward, of course, did not catch the movement of 4FC. Weaver is there. Lifesteal is gonna be the only person aware of what's happening on the bottom lane. But looks like 4FC gonna rotate themselves in through the mid lane, probably obviously trying to catch off the Centaur, or perhaps even rotate a gank on Hani. But seems like Puck is not able to get in position, as we are going to see a teleport out by Lifesteal, clearly sensing something's wrong, and they might want to get engaged on Medusa, as I don't know if Medusa caught the movement of No Tail, as Trixie is there. He broke the smoker seat. Will the ultimate be popped by Krilly, as he's level 9, has 2 points in the mana shield, and that means that's essentially, rather than 800 HP, she has maybe 1000 HP, and with Centaur not in position, they knew it would take way too long before reinforcements arrived, and that could have been potentially very disastrous for Fnatic if they went in too aggressively. But as a result, Lifesteal teleported to the top lane, did not get anything accomplished. Fly, of course, is just wandering to and fro, is not able to get any experience. The only bright spot is that Hani, as well as the Timbersaw, are farming up as Fire. We'll see what he decides to go for. Will he go for the Bloodstone build, or will he go for... I'm not too sure what he'll go for in this game. Hani holding on to a lot of gold. The question is whether to go for the Shadow Blade or BKB Rush, as I'm not too sure how much a BKB will do in this game, because Medusa Ultimate does go through that BKB, and of course the net goes through BKB as well. The only thing that BKB would block would be Puck's damage, but I don't know if she should get a 3.9k gold item just to deal with the Puck.
Radiant's bottom tower has fallen.
And all the while Fnatic were roaming to and fro, 4FC with some nice movement edge to claim the bottom tower, and Weaver's just going to work, has the medallion, has the treads, and the question is, what will he go for now? Will he go for a Lincoln Sphere? I don't know if that's completely necessary, because Frostbite is pretty much the only reliable spell to lock the Weaver in place. But Hani has bought an item. It is going to be a armlet. Interesting decision. Usually you see armlet on strength heroes, but Troll Warlord can definitely benefit from it quite a bit. The only problem now is that armlet toggling is a lot more difficult, and indeed somewhat useless in certain scenarios, since you won't be able to get that instant armlet toggle since it has that 0.3 second cooldown, rather than the pretty much almost instant as the Shen creep. Mistiming the clap just a little bit. Seems like Medusa is going to go for the Manta Rush, wants to get a slight bit of extra mobility, as well as the accent to the illusion split should a Frostbite come in. And of course the extra bit of tank ability that the Ultimate does provide is going to be useful, as there is going to be engagement on the top lane. Going to pick off the Medusa as Hani is going to come in, as Hani actually picked up a dagger, never mind. I've never seen dagger on Troll ever. What the hell is this?
Radiant's middle tower is under attack.
What Control do with the dagger? I guess he can blink in, use the whirling axes, and then hope for a first hit bash, but Mei thinks that because Centaur is just being kept down so hard, he has to be the initiator, and if that's the case, I don't know what to make of it. But at the very least, they're able to get a Medusa kill, as we are going to see a rotation in, trying to catch the Centaur off guard. Centaur could potentially be in a lot of trouble, but again, has 945 HP, is going to have to be very careful as the Dream Coil will be dropped. Here comes the blink in by the Puck. Silence going to be applied as well as Stampede. It will be used by the Centaur. And seems like 4FC will back off for now, but now that Dream Coil is down, will there be a re-engagement by Fnatic? Is Hani going to initiate with that Blink Dagger Troll? It seems like that won't be the case, as meanwhile, looks like Weaver is just going to get out by the skin of his teeth, taking way too much damage from the Timber Saw. As Weaver has the drums, has all the utility items, and now can start going for the big damage. And usually Weaver wouldn't get all these utility items if he's going for Linken's here, so I've got to assume he's going to go for either straight Deso or go for something like a Manta. But anyways, it's 1 tower to 1. 4FC have a 1 kill advantage. Checking out the goal graph, ever so slightly in favor of Fnatic because of their superior last hit chart. Experience graph ever so slightly in favor of Fnatic, but again, as time goes on, you've got to favor 4FC since they do have the Dusa. And Dusa, as you all know, if she gets too much time, she is just so difficult to bring down, especially for melee carries like the Leicester and the Troll Warrior to a certain extent.
Dire's bottom tower is under attack.
So Fnatic looking to apply as much pressure as possible, gonna pressure the bottom lane, but Juicy is there, has the ultimate online for the Naga Siren, and all the while Medusa's just contentedly farming up. We'll have the Yasha finished, and with the phase boots as well as Yasha, this Medusa is gonna be a bit tricky to catch.
Radiant's top tower is under attack.
But Hani, he wants to go in for that blink initiation, does spot the Puck, but Puck should be able to escape. No, Puck mistimes the dagger. Puck is not going to be okay, as that was a bit of a misplay by the Puck. Looks like his blink dagger was on cooldown, that's why Fnatic sprung in with the initiation. So good map recognition as 4FC Curly will be able to kill off the tower, is going to pop the ultimate and then just get on out of there. No, the Centaur stun was just there and barely in time. Tried to wait out the ultimate, then just realized he can turn in, then get the stun off. So Fnatic with some nice rebuttal kills did lose the tower, but they managed to get 2 pretty important kills to say least, but it's going to cost them another tower in the process. As here comes the initiation by Hani, gonna spot the Chen just being bashed in place. He says, who needs a reliable initiation? I have an unreliable initiation, and it is working off in spades, as right now Fnatic are starting to get on a bit of a roll, and Weaver, he might have to join these fights sooner rather than later, because Dusa is nowhere near fighting condition. And she still needs another 15 minutes before she can actually fight with the team. Bit surprised that Fnatic didn't deny the middle tower, since all it takes is a little bit of push, and that tower will fall very easily, as Hani is going to look for initiation, probably waiting for Puck to expend one of his escape abilities, but the illusion was used by the Naga Siren to scout out Hani's movement, and Hani with the haste rune is not going to chase, as Meow Weaver is just continuing to go to work. Trixie is going to pop the Triangle Boots, but immediately going to have that dispelled from the Swarm. As Leicester was able to get a successful kill off onto Chen with that hasted Blink Dagger Troll, as Dusa doesn't have the ultimate online just yet. Won't be able to get it off since the Mana Shield took a little bit too much damage, but Puck is here with the Dream Coil. Will they be able to drive off No Tail? No, No Tail gets barely netted as Hani will die. No Tail is going to die as well, as Fnatic just went a little bit too deep, and the sort of surprising tankability of Dusa definitely played a factor into that successful engagement by 4FC, and with that, this tower is definitely going to fall for Fnatic, and they might definitely regret not denying this tier 1 middle. Now Trixie trying to make his way towards the dagger. Another problem with Centaur is that he's very mana dependent, and even if you do get a dagger, you can pretty much rely on only 1 stun during an engagement, and then you're out of mana. As Weaver's just going to come in, going to backdoor the tower, and might turn his attentions on the Crystal Maiden. You won't fly. Well, you never stood a chance in hell, buddy, as he just got absolutely melted, like a Crystal Maiden so often should, by the combined forces of Naga as well as Weaver. SK bothering me as usual. bit surprised that Fire has not been able to get too much presence on the map, but again, without any sort of slow, Timbersaw can't really go for too many solo ganks against this really mobile 4FC lineup, since he won with Burst Dance to outright kill the Medusa, who can just teleport away. Won't be able to kill the Puck since he's mobile, won't be able to kill the Weaver since he's mobile, won't be able to kill the Naga because she has Song, and won't be able to kill, well, he might be able to kill the Chen, if he gets lucky. As Fnatic gonna expend another smoke, they do have the Lifestealer Bomb inside them, but they won't be able to spot out 4FC just yet. 4FC Curly gonna farm up with the Chen in the jungle, and this might cost them their lives as there is a Radiant Observer where they're gonna initiate as they're gonna pop the Stampede. Will apply that slow as here comes the Stone Gaze. Curly gonna survive for now. This Chakram just not gonna get that slow buff on place, as meanwhile Curly will be able to escape. No-Tail is going to pursue the issue. Here comes Puck. No-Tail is going to be in a lot of trouble. No-Tail is definitely going to die as he's going to armor toggle as best he possibly can, but there's only so much armor toggle he can do. He's going to use Rage to pop the coil. Meanwhile Curly's taking light edge, but the Naga Siren ultimate is online. Weaver finding himself frostbitten as Puck will pursue the issue. Going to try to pick off No-Tail likely, as No-Tail, will he die? No. They're going to turn their attentions to Hani as well as Fire will be able to escape. Fnatic just barely getting away with murder for the most part, as... who died? Chen died, I think. Yeah, Chen died, and 4FC used a lot of their ultimates, but keep in mind Fnatic devoted all 5 heroes towards that endeavor, and they used Smoker to see as well, and they only got 1 kill. But at the very least, they were able to preserve all their own lives, but they weren't able to kill off the Medusa, who was slowly but surely making his way towards that Manta style. And now we'll have 1k HP in addition to that level 4 mana shield online. This Medusa is going to be way too difficult to kill in a matter of moments. And 4FC, recognizing that Fnatic probably haven't healed up to a sufficient degree, going to go for Roshan using the Medallion of the Weaver to great effect. We'll be able to kill this Rosh, and I've got to imagine Aegis will go to the Weaver, since I don't know what Curly can do if he does manage to respawn with an Aegis at this point, because his auto attack is not that impressive to say the least. Meanwhile, Fire, one more component away from finishing the Bloodstone. Fly has Smoke to See as well as a Magic Stick, has managed to catch up in the level department to a certain extent. Centaur still trying to make his way towards a dagger, but really wants to get that level 11 line where you can get that slower cooldown on the ultimate, or lower cooldown on the ultimate, as well as have that massive extra bit of HP that his natural strength growth gives him, as well as that level 4 stun and a couple points into return. Meanwhile, No-Tail and Hani, the billionth smoke and used by Fnatic, but 4FC starting to catch on as they have an Observer Ward as well as a Sentry Ward to spot out the movement of Fnatic, and that means 4FC won't be caught off guard, as there is an Ultimate Orb now on Medusa, and she's just become way too difficult to kill in a matter of instance, as the Centaur will be used to try to scout ahead for Fnatic's movement. But at the very least, Fnatic should be able to kill off this tower without too much of a struggle.
Dire's structures are fortified. Dire's
But Fnatic, it's looking a bit desperate for them, since they've only been able to kill towers, as here comes the initiation by Puck. Fire is silenced and he can't cast any of his abilities. That Timbersaw didn't do anything, as Hani desperately trying to escape. Here comes No-Tail, will be able to pop out, trying to escape himself. Timbersaw actually bobbed back, going to use all of his Bloodstone money, and won't be able to do anything, as Fnatic just simply cannot find an avenue to reinitiate. So a successful tower trade, I guess, since Radiant managed to get the kill on the tower, but they lost 2 and spent a buyback in the process, will be won by 4FC, as now they're going to use their massive creep army as well as their tanky heroes to go to work on the tier 2 middle. And without Hani, I don't know if Fnatic can actually defend this. Here comes Fire, as he's going to do so much damage towards the Weaver. Centaur looking to initiate Hand of God, going to be applied, as here comes Song inside. The miscommunication by 4FC gonna not allow them to get the silence on, but they are going to be able to retreat safely, as Fire, without a slow, Timbersaw can't look to solo chase too effectively, but they are going to spot the Naga Siren at least. Naga Siren just stuck around a little bit too long. I don't know why she didn't just run straight back with the team. Instead ran to a route with so many trees. We were going to die as well, as his Aegis did timeout. Doesn't have the time ups online. Will 4FC reinitiate, as here comes the initiation onto Medusa. Medusa. Medusa does not have the ultimate, has already expanded. Crystal Main will drop the Nova as Weaver with the Desolator going to do a lot of damage. Chen does pick off the Centaur Warrunner as No Trial trying to do whatever he can. Does manage to infest the Chen creep off at the very last instant. Going to get so much HP. Such a chaotic team fight as Hani will try to do whatever he can to drive 4FC away. It's going to be an Aegis and a Naga kill in exchange for a Centaur. But at the very least for Fnatic, they managed to get a successful tower defense, but they are on a ticking time bomb since they devoted a lot of resources into killing the Medusa, and Medusa is only going to get stronger and stronger as this game goes on. And keep in mind, Fnatic have yet to claim a tier 2, and that is very bad news for a team fighting against Medusa. But at the very least, Fnatic now have the Blink Dagger Centaur. They have almost a BKB up on Hani, so he won't be able to be killed off by the puck as easily. Leicester has not been farming, instead just going for as many infest bombs as possible. But I think Fnatic have finally run out of smokes. As yes, their next smoke is going to be in 8 minutes, so they won't be able to get any surprise ganks off onto the Medusa, and that's just going to give her a lot of time to farm up. Meanwhile, it's not like they can gank the Weaver anyway, as he is very difficult to gank. Unless they manage to get him in an unencumbered area with a first hit bash, I suppose. At the very least, Fire will have the Bloodstone finished, and is going to pick that up right as I speak. Fly stacking Ancients, trying to do whatever he can, because Crystal Main, well, her presence in this game has been effectively eliminated. And meanwhile, Trixie, again, can only do so much as a Centaur with only level 11 online. But he is a very tanky support, to say the least, so I guess that's something. Still, while Fnatic are farming up their items, the fact of the matter remains, Medusa's continue to get farmed, is slowly but surely killing off the Ancients, has a man style finish, and the question is now, what will Medusa go for? Well, she's going to pick up a salve, but usually Medusas who skip the Lincolns either go for evasion to make her a bit tankier and go for that butterfly so she can actually do damage, or go for the Scotty like she is doing in this case, so she can get tank ability and a nice chunk of damage as well. Not as much as a butterfly, but still, that extra bit of stats for her mana shield as well as the slowing effect going to mean that Medusa is just going to be able to kite people into oblivion, and Fnatic's main heroes are mostly melee to a certain extent. You know, Chen gonna smoke up the Arc Initiate, Timber Saw. You hardly knew you gonna apply as much damage as possible as the coil is gonna snap. Weaver picks up the last hit, and there's honestly not too much Fire could have done. Probably thought he was safe as a Timber Saw, but the Blink Initiation by Poke was just a bit too good. And now this Observer Ward, I've gotta say, 4FC have just been placing some masterful wards, as they are gonna spot out that infest very easily, and they're gonna back off as a response. Meanwhile, checking out the goal graph, you can see it's starting to spiral in favor of 4FC. Even the experience graph is even, but with the even experience, you do have to favor 4FC by quite a bit, since Crystal Main is going to become more and more useless as the game goes on, whereas Medusa is going to become only more and more effective. Leicester trying to go for the Basher. Hani again finish the BKB. Basher, it's going to be useful against the Weaver, as now they can pretty much only rely on Frostbite as well as hopefully a Bash to really control that Weaver. But now it's not even about the Weaver too much anymore, it's going to be about that Medusa. And the dilemma remains, do you try to kill off Medusa's teammates and allow her to go to work? Or do you try to kill off the Medusa where she's so tanky and allow the teammates to go to work? And in most, or in 90% of situations, you have to try to kill off Medusa's team, and hopefully Medusa doesn't do as much damage. And I think that's what Fnatic's got to do, because right now Medusa doesn't hit that hard, but she'll hit harder and harder as this game goes on, especially when she gets that max level split shot online, where she won't do nearly as much reduced damage, and will get even more DPS when she finishes Scotty. And you can see Fnatic, without that smoke online, struggling a bit on movement, as it seems like they bought out their last smoke once again. But there's honestly not too much they can do. Centaur looks like he's going to go for a Blade Mail, since nobody on side of 4C is likely going to go for the BKB. Yasha is picked up by the Weaver, as Weaver can be killed if he meant to get a couple bashes off on him. But the question is, can Weaver actually be locked down by his melee heroes? And I'm not too sure of the answer. Timbersaw, again, can't really do too much by himself against the incredibly mobile lineup of 4FC. And, of course, even though Dusa is very immobile, Timbersaw can't really solo kill the Dusa. So Fnatic definitely looking in dire straits, but Fnatic still are in this game because they do have Troll. All they need is a couple lucky bashes. If they manage to get a solid initiation off with the Centaur onto maybe the Puck, then they can sort of control the team fight in that direction. And if the Centaur can survive, they can still get away with the Rampage or with the Stampede if push comes to shove, but that's going to be a lot harder when Puck does pick up the Scythe of Ice, as now the Disable will just keep one of Fnatic's heroes out of commission once the Rage or the BKB goes down, or of course can be used to lock down the Timbersaw or the Centaur if push comes to shove. And with that Scythe of Ice purchase, Trixie, ooh, just gonna barely escape. No, he's gonna reveal himself, is gonna get the initiation off onto the Naga Illusion, as Puck is gonna say, thank you for revealing yourself, as Puck picks up a very easy kill, did not expend the ultimate. And that means Fnatic will be lacking the Centaur's presence in the team fight, and that is not going to be good news for Fnatic, as 4FC right now we're definitely looking in very strong control, and all while Deuce is just continuing to farm up saying, go team, go fight 4v4 while I just do whatever I want. Is Hani going to do some quick APM checks with his axes? He's saying, well, can't arm with toggle, even though he didn't even pick up the armor in the first place. So just gonna do some axes, and now more than ever I do have to question that Blink Dagger, since if he had something like a, I don't know, a Yasha, you could chase a bit more effectively, although Blink Dagger does give you some initiation. But I think Blink Dagger, I don't know if it was necessarily the best time. I think he should have maybe gotten it once Centaur picked up the Blink Dagger himself. But if that's the case, then they wouldn't be able to get off so many solid early game engagements. So I'm not too sure what to make of Troll Blink Dagger, but there's only so much effectiveness it can give you as the game drags on. And it seems like Hani's effectiveness is starting to wane, although he still has a 10-second BKB online, so he still has the possibility to get a lot of bashes onto these 4FC heroes. And outside Medusa, these heroes are not that tanky. Weaver only 1k HP, Puck 1200 HP, Chen not too much HP, Naga has Assange, gonna go for that halberd, but she herself, even though she has a lot of armor, is not that tanky.
Radiant's top tower is under attack.
But 4FC gonna do a very nice play, gonna split push, but Fnatic gonna use this opportunity to just walk into Rosh. 4FC have spotted this movement completely and utterly, and will they be able to contest it? A couple bashes could spell the end of Rosh as Puck is in position, and oh no, Fnatic, they are gonna be caught out of position by quite a bit. The Storm going to use to scout out. They just simply don't have enough burst damage to kill down Roshan as fast as they possibly can. Here comes Puck. Gunishish has a perfect dream call as the silence and just the ridiculous amounts of damage from 4FC will be able to drive Fnatic away. Fire probably going to die as well. And no, he's going to escape, but at the cost of 3 heroes on Fnatic, as well as a Rush for 4FC, as well as a tier 2 on top lane, a tier 2 on bottom lane. This is just looking grimmer and grimmer by the moment for Fnatic. Fnatic could overestimate their DPS output on Rosh, and to say it cost them would be an understatement, as that might just be the game, as now Weaver has another Aegis, can just go all out glass cannon. 4FC Curly can just tank up to a ridiculous margin. Fire going to be in a lot of trouble for the billionth time, as Timbersaw just simply can't do much. Finally a Bloodstone suicide. One of the first times I've seen it, but it's just simply not coming up, as Curly now has to finish Scotty. 2k HP, a lot of mana to tank with the mana shield. This might be the end of Fnatic, as, well, No-Tail gonna do whatever he can. Curly, or sorry, Fire is still dead, but now No-Tail is being slowed by the Scotty, which goes to the Rage, of course, and No-Tail gonna be driven all the way back simply by Medusa. And Weaver, of course, with the Aegis can just go ham whenever he sees fit. This simply seems like 4FC will be able to claim this game without too much of a struggle from Fnatic. As 4FC going to take the racks back off. No, they're going to smoke up and look to re-engage, looking to end the game right here, right now. They do have the Dream Coil, they do have the Blink Initiation by Puck, and because Fnatic are melee, they are going to be naturally clumped up as they try to clear off the creep wave. Trixie going to be caught, going to be slowed by Scotty. Fire going to get hexed up, he's going to die. Trixie will be able to land one more stun off, but he's going to die, and I think this is going to be GG. Yep, Trixie going to call a good game, as I don't know if Fnatic necessarily... The draft just simply wasn't there, but I am glad to see that Fnatic continue to play Fnatic Dota, where they just try a lot of interesting things while they can, and then save their best stuff for last. And it wouldn't be Fnatic Dota unless they tried a lot of interesting things. But it's good that 4FC managed to make good usage of Dusa, using that 1v1 solo lane matchup as best they possibly could, and use that offensive jungle Chen so that Fnatic could not actually aggress the tri lane. But I think Fnatic have now realized if you pick Timbersaw in the first two, you kind of need a better support than a defensive Centaur jungler. Because I think the main problems are Centaur as well as Timbersaw. Timbersaw picked up in the first two, allowed 4FC to just counterpick him to death with incredibly mobile heroes. And if they weren't incredibly mobile, then they were pretty tanky. And they also relied on Centaur not being a presence for the first 10-15 minutes of the game. So hopefully you'll see more usage of Centaur in better situations. I think he still does pretty well in aggressive challenges, doesn't do nearly as well in defensive situations. So I don't think this is the last time we'll see Centaur. I don't know if this is necessarily the last time we'll see Dusa, but I don't know if this is going to be a common thing, Dusa against an off-lane solo hero like Timbersaw, because, well, I think people realize if you go for 15 minutes with only 1 or 2 kills on Dusa and not claiming any tier 2s, then you're probably going to be in a pretty bad position as far as thing goes. So I think Fnatic will realize their mistake, but good on 4FC to completely outdraft Fnatic, who are still top 3 European teams to say the least, and of course made top 8 at the International 3. But hopefully you enjoyed that game. Thanks for watching, and I'll see y'all next time. Peace.